Hey everyone, it's time to talk Notre Dame recruiting. I'm joined by Mike Singer, blueandgold.com's recruiting expert and reporter. My name is Greg Ladke. Please hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can take part in the chat. Mike, let's get to some of the news of the week. There's some movement around or some news around the 2023 cornerback board with Justyn Rhett and his announcement of his top five.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in 2023 DB recruiting. I mean, here we are a month from National Signing Day for the 2022 class, and there's a lot of talk, and there's still movement and things to be had, on that board. But we're going to talk about DBs and a lot of stuff going on in 2023. Not to get too off track, Greg, but I remember my first year covering Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
This was for the 2020 recruiting class, and they had guys like Drew Pine and Chris Tyree. It was like it was I remember that fall of 2019, it was so slow. There was like I mean, they had basically filled their entire class except for one player. It was Ramon Henderson was the last guy they needed. And they really didn't work ahead that much on the 2021 class. So this is just night and day different in my opinion. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
on both sides of the ball, these guys recruit much more active for these underclassmen. But side note. Yeah, so Justyn Rhett, top 100 player from Las Vegas, Bishop Gorman, posted his top five schools: Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Greg, I think that's a pretty good top five list if
Yeah,
you're
it's
going to ask me. It's a little bit of a who's who of college football there. It's a great group, and I put in a future cast pick for him to land with the Fighting Irish back in June. I thought there was actually a decent chance he was going to commit to Notre Dame then. He decided to wait, understandably so. He's, just going into his junior year of high school. And I just feel like he is someone who is not going to take their time with the recruiting process. Like, he's not going to be like a signing day of senior year. Like, I could see him popping sometime in the next couple months,
mm-hmm.
potentially. Um, how do I feel about my future cast pick? Not fantastic right now. Kind of like when I put it in, felt really good. When you have Alabama and Georgia and Oklahoma does a fantastic job at Bishop Gorman, I'm not as confident in it.
Mm-hmm.
But look, there's a lot of good connections for him there. Nico Fertitas, his defensive backs coach, of course, he played for the Fighting Irish from I believe 2015 to 2018. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not extremely confident that Notre Dame is going to pull that one off. We'll just have to wait and see.
You want to touch upon Malik Muhammad and Notre Dame not making their top 12? Our first two questions, in fact, in our chat channel are about Malik Muhammad.
That was a surprise. I'm still trying to kind of piece that one together because you talk to sources and it was like, um, you know, uh, Notre Dame felt like they were going to land this young man, top 100 player. He's on the screen there for our YouTube audience. Um, and he had a fantastic visit to Notre Dame over the summer. I mean, this is a guy who I believe is like a five-star caliber player, and
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame loves him. He loved Notre Dame, and it was kind of like, why in the like I've seen some head scratchers. I mean, doing this for almost a decade, you see a lot of odd things in recruiting. This one was, certainly a surprise to not see Notre Dame in his top group. Um, what this means going forward, I would expect Notre Dame to still recruit him. That's for sure. I think Notre Dame's going to want to get him on campus again, see if they can't change his mind. So yeah, but my feeling on this is that he did. I mean, obviously he didn't put Notre Dame in his top 12, but the Fighting Irish staff is not going to give up on him. I mean, I've seen people say, well, if you like Notre Dame so much, and Notre Dame liked him, but he's not putting them in the top 12. Is it grades? Fantastic students, not grades. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see where this one goes from here, Greg. But again, the feeling is that Notre Dame's going to keep battling for him.
Not to pile on what can be perceived as bad news, but AJ Harris was thinking visiting right at one point for the Georgia Tech game, and now that's not in the plans, correct?
Yeah, I mean that's the number one corner in the 2023 class. I mean Notre Dame has done a really good job getting on these top 2023 cornerbacks specifically, and sometimes kids just aren't feeling Notre Dame. And AJ Harris's dad grew up a big Fighting Irish fan. That's been pretty well documented. But I just don't think AJ was feeling the Fighting Irish. So we'll see if that changes. But right now, the feeling is that Notre Dame is got a lot more work to do for this elite prospect, and probably, actually, definitely on the outside looking in for him. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, that he's destined to play for one of those, SEC contenders. That would be my guess right now. But yeah, he was going to visit this weekend. That trip was all but locked in, and now it won't happen.
You mentioned how much work the Notre Dame staff has put into the future classes like 2023 and 2024. So the board is not done with the guys we just talked about. They do have Christian Gray, the St. Louis product, coming in this weekend, correct? What are your thoughts there?
That's huge. I remember when he actually, I'll go back. Here's a little bit of a story. I was on the phone with Robert Steeples, who interviewed for the cornerback position job at Notre Dame, the one that Mike Mickens got. Steeples was the head coach of St. Louis DeSmet at the time.
Yep.
And I went there when Jordan Johnson was a high school recruit and Notre Dame still after Jalen Johnson. And so I built a good connection with Steeples. And I remember talking to him earlier. I want to say it was around January of this year. Now Steeples is with the Vikings. But I talked to him before he got that job, and he said, "Hey, I got to tell you about this kid." And Greg, I get that daily, 4 or 5 times a day. I get someone telling me, "Hey, I got to tell you about this kid." But when Steeples talks, I listen. And he said, "I got to tell you about this kid, Christian Gray. He is, he's going to be my next best cornerback recruit after Jalen Johnson, who he was a 5-star caliber recruit. I can't remember what Jalen ended up signing, but Notre Dame loved him and wasn't able to get him. But so Christian Gray goes and camps at Notre Dame for Irish Invasion, gets his scholarship offer after running very well and testing well and looked good in his cornerback drills and in one-on-ones. And he returned for the cookout at the end of July. And then Notre Dame was going to host him for the USC game, but then he had a playoff game scheduled for October 23rd, so he had to cancel his visit. Fine. But hey, when a kid has to cancel a visit, it's always as good. Again, hashtag follow the visit. It's always good to see, does that recruit set up another visit? Does he look to reschedule it? And he did. So we'll be on campus this weekend. Feel like it's a Notre Dame Ohio State battle for Christian Gray, number 159 player in America, number 24 corner in the 2023 class. It's going to be a tough battle. He's visited Ohio State a couple times too and really likes the Buckeyes. I like Notre Dame right now, not at the level of putting in a future cast pick in. Maybe after this weekend, we'll see how the visit goes. But, when you talk about the Malik Muhammad news and AJ Harris news, it's certainly good to hear that Christian Gray is going to visit campus.
And you mentioned to me off camera that Micah Tease is another name that Notre Dame recruiting fans should start getting familiar with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's tough for Notre Dame to go into Oklahoma and win a recruiting battle that of a prospect that Oklahoma's after, right? I mean, we see this with Notre Dame going into South Carolina sometimes, and obviously Ohio and Alabama. Like it's tough, but I think Notre Dame is actually a sneaky, contender here for Micah Tease. He's visited Notre Dame 3 times going back to the summer, Irish Invasion in June, the cookout at the end of July, and they visited for, I believe, the USC game. It might have been North Carolina game. Oklahoma's after him. Our Oklahoma Rivals publisher and a couple others have future cast picks in for him to choose the Sooners. But I don't know. Greg. I'm kind of liking Notre Dame for Micah Tease right now. Just really, and people I've talked to close to him just fits Notre Dame. So I think the Fighting Irish could pull off an upset there. So you're looking at, Micah Tease, Christian Gray, potentially Justyn Rhett. I mean, this is potentially a big time DB class for the Fighting Irish. Since I've been covering Notre Dame, Greg, I'm seeing such a nice upward trajectory. Man, that's a tough word. Trajectory of DB recruiting from 2020 being okay. 2021 DB class was pretty strong. I feel like 2022 was a jump up, and 23, might be the best class.
A lot of Notre Dame's prospects, commitments in the class of 2022 have now finished their seasons, or they're about to, as various states around the country go deep into the playoffs. And Mike, we talked about maybe having a little segment here where here are the guys and try to put rankings aside, just like as we go through film, right? Like
Yeah.
who are the 5 guys that impressed you the most so far this year? I know you take care of that commit tracker every week. That's like a tough thing to put
Oh.
together, and you're watching a lot of film. So give me your 5 guys. Start from the top. Like who do you just love in terms of their film their senior year?
So when we're talking about the show today and planning it, it was really tough to just pick 5. I have like 4 guys who like just missed the cut, who we can touch on after
Yeah.
I go through the 5. I think the first has to be Jaylen Sneed.
Mm-hmm.
And he played 11 games this season. And I mean, or I'm sorry, his team played 11 games. I believe he probably only played in like, when you add it up, like 8.5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Here are his numbers: 101 tackles. And South Carolina's not the best football, but it's competitive. Like,
Yeah.
might not have a ton of D1 dudes, Greg, but like really competitive football, right? 101 tackles, 8 TFLs, a sack, which is interesting because his junior year, although it was a really limited season, talking like 2 games, he was playing D end. This season, not as much at all, right? Here he's coming off the edge, but much more of like a linebacker position that'll play at Notre Dame. 8 QB hits, 2 picks, pass breakup, 2 block punts. Strong linebacker statistics. He's also playing quarterback
Yeah.
for his team. 117 rushes, 815 yards, 11 scores, and then throwing the ball a little bit, 27 of 50 for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's an athlete on defense. He's an athlete on offense, literally just putting his team on his shoulders. They fell in the first round of the 4A South Carolina State playoffs, but a very strong season for him.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Someone who
Each of Notre Dame's linebacker commits for 2022, they play offense. They handle the ball a lot, right? I mean, they just put up these amazing stat lines because Joshua Burnham and Noah Ziegler are essentially doing the same thing in Michigan, right?
Hey, don't spoil
Uh-oh.
my other potential predictions here. But yeah, I mean, it's such a good linebacker class, and
Yeah,
that's who
I'd
you
really
would
like it.
expect. Yeah, that's what you'd expect having Marcus Freeman. And Snead is someone who, I actually had someone ask me this week, what if Freeman gets, I mean, like, let's say Nick Saban's hangs it up after the season, and they call Marcus Freeman, and Freeman takes that job, right? I mean, no one could blame him. What happens to this defensive class? And I was like, I don't know. And again, that's a crazy speculation. I strongly believe Marcus Freeman, even though you're going to see him on coaching hot boards, and he probably is on some of them for some of these openings. I believe Marcus Freeman's going to stay, but what if?
Yeah. Well, for your
Jaylen
health, I
Sneed
hope
would
he
be the
doesn't
one
leave.
guy. I'm sorry, Greg.
I said for your health, Mike, I hope he doesn't leave because that would be
Oh,
like a massive recruiting weekend times 10 in terms of the phone calls you've got to make.
oh, good Lord. Yeah.
All
But
right.
Sneed would be the one who he is someone who Notre Dame, I mean, they didn't offer him until Freeman got there. I mean, like
Yeah.
Freeman's got a really strong relationship with BJ Payne, the Hilton head coach. I mean, they would just have no shot without Marcus Freeman. So that he would be the one. I mean, and this is, I think he's a 5-star. I mean, Greg, you saw him at all those rivals camps.
Yeah.
I mean, how good was he when you saw him in person? Because I was there for all of them too.
I mean, he's super athletic. He's super rangy. I mean, his ability to cover. I mean, he was covering wide receivers and fast running backs in one-on-ones with, I don't want to say ease, but he was winning frequently a lot of repetitions. I mean, to me, he's a more athletic, potentially more athletic Prince Collie. Um,
Mm.
but, obviously he's got a little bit more of a background on playing off the edge than I think Prince Collie probably did coming out of high school. But I mean, he's awesome. I love all 3 of those linebackers. I think essentially the theme to me with this linebacker group is bigger and faster than what you currently see playing for Notre Dame with their starters. They're going to be bigger at least, and they are faster guys who I think are more all around football players.
Even the biggest one of that group is Nwafe Jr. Tui Halamaka.
I forgot
Um,
about him. Yeah. And
Yeah,
he's more of an
he's going to be a thumper in the
yeah,
middle.
yeah, yeah.
But he is still even pretty athletic. Like, I remember talking to his coach, and he was like, "Yeah, what I like about him is he can cover out in space." And then I was talking to his trainer, and he was like, "He's a really good D end." I'm like, "Wow!" Like, even this kid, even though like of the four, I feel like Tuihalamaka is the least versatile. But even like the people close to him are talking about his versatility. I'm like, okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a good linebacker group. And the thing about like I want to remind Notre Dame fans, I'm looking at you, don't forget about these early commitments in like Jaylen Sneed, someone like him, or Tuihalamaka or Burnham. Do you remember those announcements and those recruitments, how big they were? Don't
Yeah.
dismiss them, because Notre Dame might miss out on some late recruits here down the stretch. Just because they might, that doesn't dismiss how good the recruiting class is in the guys that they landed early in the process. So that's my message to you.
Hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember that if you subscribe, you can immediately start taking part in our comments and ask us a question there. Mike, next on your list as far as guys, regardless of ranking, whose senior film you loved?
And that was a 6-minute ramble on
On
Jaylen
Jaylen Sneed.
Sneed.
Yeah, he's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaylen, fantastic player. Eli Raridon
Yeah,
has been such a baller this
this is
season.
my number.
I am so happy that he has shown what he has as a senior, because his junior year he didn't have huge numbers. How about this? And this is a tight end. Tight ends don't get the ball a ton.
No.
He does. And he's played in 12 games. He's got 53 receptions, 627 yards, and 10 touchdowns. When they played against Southeast Polk, which is the Xavier Nwankpa, Caden Proctor team, which I'm sure we're going to get questions about Wonkpa here, he played defensive end for the first time he's ever played DN in his life, I believe, or at least in high school. And he went up against Caden Proctor and had a couple of sacks that game. Like, Eli Raridon is someone who, I mean, I love Mitchell Evans and Kane Barong. I think Eli Raridon, his upside's better than both of those guys. And I mean, before Barong got hurt, he was starting to play. And Mitchell Evans, we've seen a good bit of him this season. I think Raridon, he's not as big right now as Evans, but like I think he could be a freshman year contributor if Notre Dame needs him to be. Very willing blocker, fantastic out in space. He's kind of just got this like, I don't know the word, but he's just got this like fluidity and just kind of like if you go outside of that used car sales lot, it's got that blow up thing that just kind of moves around really weird.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah.
He kind
Flail
of
in the
just
wind.
has that movement to me. It's like, how does he bend? How does he bend and move the way Eli Raridon does at like 6'6", 220 or 225 pounds? He's just lanky and can move really well. I think the world of him. Notre Dame legacy. I was fired up when Notre Dame offered him. So you just like, I put in a future cast pick in right away. I mean, I was excited to cover him because he's a really fun football player.
All right, next on your list, you have two of the five. You don't have to do five, but if you can even do seven if you want, Mike. But I may not have the video ready for all seven, but
I
you
will go
next.
quickly through the just missed the cuts.
Okay, who just missed your
But
top five?
there's this kid, and when I talk earlier about Notre Dame fans, I'm looking at you again. Don't sleep on some of these commitments that you had. Do you remember this guy named CJ Williams?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, 50 scholarship offers, every school under the sun went after him. I mean, he has played in 9 games this season. In modern day, is the number 1 team in the country. So I'm sure he's not played in many second halves this year, but still 42 receptions, 719 yards, in 11 touchdowns. So that he's catching a touchdown about every fourth catch, if my math is good. He's so smart. He's so good in the red zone. Like, he is just a technician at the wide receiver position. I use that word to describe Jordan Johnson when I saw him as a recruit, like, because Johnson wasn't the burner, but like I just kind of loved his routes and what he could do to separate, it's night and day to me. I like CJ Williams much more than Jordan Johnson as a prospect. And like, I know it's probably easy to say that right now about Johnson. Like I did like him as a prospect for sure, but give me CJ Williams. And I know his stock is kind of down when you look at the rankings at some of these sites. And personally, I just don't get it because, yeah, he's not the fastest, but you look at his routes, he can recognize defenses so well.
Hmm.
Incredible body control, knows how to shield off defenders and make some of these catches. I mean, he has just been so good this season. I mean, I'm sure it helps that, his quarterback, I forget this, Elijah Brown in the 2024 class, like he is excellent. I'm sure he's got, Power 5 offensive linemen up front. His on the other side, he's got Jack Wrestler, a 2024 receiver who's Notre Dame's offered. And Cooper Barkate is another receiver there who is committed to Harvard. So he's got, just outstanding weapons all across the field that I'm sure helps him get all these one-on-one coverages. But still, he just looks so good on film. I'm really excited about him.
Yeah, I would put him in my top five just because I feel better about him on film than I did after the camp season. Um, and it just there's
I,
questions about, like you said, his speed, his ability to separate, but he gets open on film, and you can't fault him for that.
I do remember seeing those clips after the May Rivals camp in Los
I
Angeles,
shot
and
those, yeah.
yeah, some good separation, but then there was I didn't love the tape either. I just didn't, but this senior film looks fantastic. All right, we got a couple more.
Yeah, who's next?
Let's talk about a running back. Let me pull up his Jadarian Price from Denison, Texas. I believe this was shot by Tyler Horka.
Yeah,
This was his opening game of the season.
this is all you're gonna get on him too. So
162 yards. Oh yeah, he doesn't have huddle, right? So he's not putting up stuff during the football season for his senior tape. 162 carries, 1,593 yards, 16 touchdowns. Doing a little bit in the passing game, 21 receptions, 277 yards, and the score's also got a kickoff return for a touchdown. Those stats are missing one game, by the way. Was waiting for an official word from Max Prep, so those numbers even better. I mean, you're talking about 1,700 yards for a high school football player. I mean, a running back position, workhorse for his team. I mean, he's just been phenomenal this season. His last game was a 47-25 in the first round of the playoffs to Class 5A in Texas. Really good football, 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, it's easy to see a loss at the high school level,
hmm.
and that running back on the losing team is typically being stuffed, not Jadarian Price. Like, he has just been so good. I mean, look, in 2021, Notre Dame lost out on Will Shipley. Who did they get? Logan Diggs been pretty
Yeah,
damn good, Notre Dame fans. The Irish didn't land any of that big three, Sawchuk, Singleton, Dallin Hayden. How about Jadarian Price? He's been so freaking good this season. Lance Taylor's doing a really good job at running back recruiting.
all right, you got one more, and I believe it's another guy in defense, right?
What's the defense to offensive breakdown? So 3 offense, 2 defense. So yes, Tommy Reese and those guys can recruit Notre Dame fans, and it is Joshua Burnham though. You mentioned earlier the linebackers and how good they have been. Um, Goodness, I mean his numbers at the linebacker position would be much greater if he was playing the position more. I mean his number one spot on this Traverse City Central team is quarterback.
Yeah.
He's been pretty good there, 48 of 87. Obviously, not throwing the ball a ton, similar to Sneed. 934 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, just 1 pick. But it's the rushing game. 163 attempts, 1,300 yards, 25 scores, 25 rushing touchdowns he has through, I believe, 12 games. On the defensive side of the ball, been really good too. 65 and a half tackles, 11 TFLs, a sack, pass breakup, and an interception. I just love these versatile players, very athletic. He's also big. I think he's got a good case to be the number one recruit in his class from the state of Michigan, and it's a good group there. Love Joshua Burnham. I believe he's visited. If maybe he's missed one, but he's been to most of Notre Dame's home games this season.
Hmm.
Great ambassador of the football program. If you're a Fighting Irish fan, you got to be really fired up about this young man. He's a great kid. Quick notes, just missed the cut. This was very tough. Joey Tenona,
Yeah.
offensive lineman for Notre Dame from Zionsville, Indiana, making another deep playoff run, just like they did last year, even though they had like a 5-loss season in 2020. And then this year, too, Zionsville still making deep playoff run. There's no stats for offensive linemen, so it's hard for me to read off that. Like there's nothing there on Tenona. But watching the film, he's going to be a really good get for Notre Dame. Nolan Ziegler's been fantastic
Yeah.
this season, similar to Burnham, getting it done on both sides of the ball. Devin Moore, 4-star corner from Florida. Oh my goodness, that kid! He is a unicorn. You know what? I take that back.
He'd
I
be
don't
one of
like
my
that
top
term.
5.
Yeah, he would be.
Yeah.
I don't like the term unicorn because that's like once in a generation. Like that's a Kyle Hamilton, Sonny Styles. Ooh, that might sting for Notre Dame fans to hear. I'm sorry, but Devin Moore is fantastic. Kick return, corner, very productive at the corner position, which you don't see a lot of times because offense is just going to take you out of the game. They're just not going to throw you your way. He still is getting active. Aiden Gobier from the defensive end position has like 80 tackles this season.
Yeah.
Very productive football player, someone you saw. So
Mm-hmm.
what would your personal 5 be, Greg? I
I
don't know if you had that prepared.
I didn't get to 5. I agree with you on Burnham. I said C.J. Williams earlier. I think Eli Raridon would be my number 1, and I'd put Devin Moore. I think Devin Moore is a potential first-round corner, boundary corner down the road. I like him a lot.
The thing about Moore is when you have a 6'2 and a half, 6'3 corner at 180, 190 pounds, it's like, is he a little too stiff? Like, I was a little bit concerned about that with Ramon Henderson. Like, is he too stiff to play corner? Is he going to play safety? It's not a bad thing. Ramon Henderson played great at safety last week. But with Moore, after I saw him in person, I was like, yeah, this kid can play corner.
Yeah,
He's got really quick hips.
he looks like, and I don't want to inflate it too much, but he looks like the Marlon Humphrey Fitzpatrick type big Alabama corner to me.
Alabama still talks to him. I mean, so yeah, Alabama. It came down to really Alabama, Florida, and Notre Dame,
Because
and
he looks a lot like Minka
yeah,
Fitzpatrick, and yeah,
yeah.
just like I said, those sort of players. I mean, he might even be bigger than
DBU
Marlon Humphrey.
DBU is like the crown for that is between Alabama, Florida, and LSU, right, Greg? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, Alabama and LSU would be the only 2 I'd put there, but
sure, okay, yeah, maybe Florida's trended away, but I mean, he's got offers from all those schools. Like, I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan, going back to don't sleep on these kids that are committed. Devin Moore was a big time get.
let's get to some questions. We have some on our YouTube channel as well as from our subscribers. I'll get to one from our premium board, the loose emoji board at blueandgold.com. A Biddlecombe 10, if I'm pronouncing that right, just asked, and you mentioned this earlier, the status on Xavier Nwankpa.
Yeah, I was not surprised to see that question. I don't know if we've gotten a who's next to commit, so someone needs to go ahead and drop that.
It might have been
Maybe
really
if the
early.
super chat wouldn't mind. I'm sorry, Greg.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and super chat us, by the way. Drop us some money. We'll tell you who the next commit is. We actually, I
Yeah,
don't know if we know. Oh, you might know, Mike. I don't know.
I could give a guess. Well, the last live show we did, I would not have said Emil Wagner.
That's true.
Quick side note on Wagner. I was in Phoenix at the hotel lobby just writing away when my phone blows up about Emil Wagner committing, and I was like, 5 minutes before he went on the air, I was told it was Kentucky, but that was a crazy one. Make sure you go to blueandgold.com, check out that story on Emil Wagner. Awesome interview.
So
You talking about
Wonkpa.
his commit. Wonkpa. Yeah,
Still on
sorry.
the
You
board.
keep me on track.
Yeah.
So I've been reading now and hearing from some people that Ohio State now, it's potentially in the pole position. I'm like, what? Earlier this year, Ohio State looked like the leader, and then it looked like they're the number 3 school. And now they're back to the top spot. Like, I don't know. But the one thing it has seemed like for a lot of this recruitment is that Notre Dame's been running second. It's been flip-flopping between 3 and 1. I don't know who is leading right now. I can tell you that just in conversation with some sources, that Notre Dame still has more work to do. I think they're going to have maybe like one last kind of put their chips all in the middle kind of move for Wonkpa. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. But right now, if I had to pick, if I could do a, a future cast to just say not Notre Dame, and it would be Iowa and Ohio State, I would do that. I don't love Notre Dame for Wonkpa right now. Not writing it off. Guys, I didn't think Notre Dame was going to mail Wagner, and here we are. He's on the commitment list. Notre Dame didn't even feel like they were going to get him, nor did they feel like they were going to get Jaden Bellamy, defensive back in this class.
Right.
They thought he was going to Penn State per sources, and now he's on Notre Dame's commitment list. You just don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, right now, I would lean elsewhere.
So D-Rock Irish, just the second part of his question, he's wondering about Billy Shrouth in Wisconsin.
The last I heard, he is not visiting Notre Dame this weekend. I'm sure the Fighting Irish staff was really hoping that he would make it to campus. Um, D-Rock, I'm with you, man. Like, I'm just waiting. Like, it's like I don't know what else Wisconsin or Notre Dame has to do here. Both schools have been recruiting him for a year and a half. It's just going to be him making a decision. I mean, I was literally texting a source close to him today, and the latest I heard was just hoping he makes a decision soon. He's an early enrollee. He's got to decide here pretty soon. He signed in December. I'm still leaning Notre Dame by the slightest margin, but I wouldn't be surprised with anything at this point.
Anything new on Carnell Tate? Tage Schilling wants to know.
He says, I'll be in a much better mood if they can steal Carnell Tate from Ohio State. You can't steal what you
Don't have
what no one has. So that one, I mean, quick side note, Greg. I mean, side notes. Notre Dame and Ohio State are battling a ton.
Yeah.
You're not hearing a ton about Michigan, Notre Dame. It's a lot more Notre Dame and Ohio State. So if there is any glass half full outlook on some of these items, like losing Sonny Styles to Ohio State, it's that. It's like, hey, at least you're recruiting down that aisle, and
Right.
Michigan, not so much. If you look at the All-Star games postseason, Notre Dame's not, or Michigan that only has like a few guys,
Yeah.
right? Like the All-American Bowl, the Under Armour game. Notre Dame's got like half their class in these postseason games. But okay, back to Carnell Tate. I have a future cast picking for Notre Dame. You guys know I hate putting in picks that are wrong and changing them. I feel like one of those two things might happen. Either I'm wrong on Notre Dame or I change it to Ohio State. I just don't see it personally. That's kind of a gut thing. Notre Dame is still battling. They talk to him often, really good relationships. Carnell Tate loves Tommy Reese, Dre Brown, Del Alexander, but he also loves Brian Hartline at Ohio State, Ryan Day. It's close. I've said this about Carnell Tate for months now. Even if he commits to Ohio State today or he commits to Notre Dame today, I still don't think the recruitment's over. I still think he'll look at other visits and whatnot. So not too worried about it.
Is Sonny Styles' commitment or recruitment over? That's what Colin C would like to know.
The thing about that one is, like, let's say Ryan Day leaves for X job. Like, let's say something crazy happens. I still think Sonny Styles would probably stick with Ohio State. His dad went there. Like, he probably bleeds, what is it? Crimson and Black? Is it Scarlet and
Gray?
Scarlet and Gray. There you go. Crimson's what? Oklahoma. Crimson Cream. Okay. I'm glad I got you to reel me back in, Greg, because I love Notre Dame recruiting, so I can talk about this stuff all day. So I think it's done personally. Does Notre Dame think it's done? Probably not. I think that they're going to keep recruiting him. Like, why not? I mean, he's still probably going to visit Notre Dame next fall, right, to see his brother play. So you're at least going to get him on campus, and I keep working on him. Why not?
Make sure you hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, that's how you can partake in the chat. And make sure when you go to blueandgold.com, you seek out our newsletter, sign up for that. Great way free way to keep up with all the Notre Dame news. How about one from our subscribers? Grubenhofer04 asks, would ND take Jackson Arnold or Chris Vezina right now? Those are a pair of 2023 quarterbacks.
Let me pull up this question and read it. I just want to make sure I get the wording right. Would Notre Dame take them right now?
Yeah.
It's moot because I don't think none of these guys want to commit right now. So it's like, I would just be kind of making something up, like because Notre Dame, in talking to sources, they don't think any quarterbacks are going to commit anytime soon. Like we're embarking in this period here soon where there's going to be coaching changes, quarterbacks entering the transfer portal. If I'm a quarterback, why would I commit right now? I want to see the dust settle a little bit more. Like, does Drew Pine transfer and then Notre Dame's got like three scholarship quarterbacks? Like, what do
Yeah.
some of these things look like? And I hate to use Pine as an example, but like that's just kind of like a what if scenario. So I think quarterback dominoes will start to fall after the season, and most of these schools are taking one, maybe two quarterbacks, not like the linebacker position where you could take four, or offensive line, or you could take five. So it's a very domino kind of position, where one domino falls and then a lot more can happen at that spot. So Vizina, Notre Dame really likes him. Jackson Arnold from Texas, Notre Dame really likes him. I like both prospects. These are clips that I took of Vizina a couple weeks ago. I know our Tyler Horka has seen Jackson Arnold a couple times. Both really good prospects. I think Arnold, to me, has just really interesting upside. I think he could really be elite. Like when you look at this group that they've offered, Dante Moore from Detroit, borderline 5-star guy, Nico Iamavulu, I don't remember how we were pronouncing his last name. He's another guy's in that realm. But Arnold is a 4-star guy outside the rivals 250. Like I think that he's got sneaky big potential. He's a big time player leading a big time program.
ND Irish '08, one of our great posters on our forum, wanted to know about Ryan Yates, as a kind of an add-on to the discussion about the 2023 cornerback board. Where does Notre Dame stand with him?
So it's interesting. Yates, teammate of Jackson Arnold,
Mm-hmm.
that quarterback we were just watching there on the screen, and Peyton Bowen, who we talked about one of our recent video updates, safety target for Notre Dame that I put in a future cast pick for. Yates visited in October. Yeah, he's a big time target. So yeah, Brandon's question is Notre Dame pushing hard for Yates to join Bowen? Heck yeah. Is he a top of the board target? Heck yeah. I mean, if Yates called up Notre Dame tonight and said he wanted to commit, I think Mike Mickens and those guys would be doing cartwheels. He's got Texas and Oklahoma and everybody after him. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a top of the board guy.
We have a question about Nicholas Harbour from back to GB Runhofer 04. I may have butchered his name. These are just message board handles, but he says,
Yeah.
"What are our chances of with Nicholas Harbour, the athlete out of the Washington D.C. area?"
Yeah, this is a name that resurfaced. Notre Dame offered this Washington, D.C. area prospect back in May,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of fizzled out pretty quickly. But Notre Dame has turned up the heat. Basically, what I had heard was he was preferred the offensive side of the ball. Now he's looking more on the defensive side, and he's listed at 6'5", 220 pounds. And I've read that he runs in the 10. He's been recorded at the 10-3 100-meter dash, which is like hard to believe. So even if that's not true, and he's like, okay, he doesn't run a 10-3, but he runs like a 10-4-5. Like, holy crap, he's 6'5", 220, still running that. He would be a nice consolation prize if with Sonny Styles going to Ohio State. Nicholas Harbour, big time athlete, either side of the ball. He would be a great rover for Notre Dame. So still early. He hasn't visited Notre Dame's campus. Oklahoma seems to be a favorite school for him early on. They actually do pretty well in the DMV area. They got
Yep.
Caleb Williams from there, Gonzaga High School. But yeah, Notre Dame certainly. His high school is Archbishop Carroll. I mean, if there's not a more Notre Dame style profile fit school, then I don't know what is. Maybe a school called Notre Dame, which I know there is in California. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Harbour right now. Notre Dame's still in the early stages with them.
Our same wonderful subscriber asked about another big time player out of the DC area, Jason Moore. He wanted an update there.
Yeah, the number one defensive tackle in 2023 class. Another kid in the DMV area. Clips here that Greg Ladke shot just a few weeks ago.
Yep.
He Notre Dame is going to be in that one till the very end. I would, if I had to make a prediction right now, I think he's going to Notre Dame. DeMatha Catholic School. I mean, that's another super high academic school, Catholic school. He's got that that knowledge of what school would be like at Notre Dame with that upbringing. I like Notre Dame for him right now. Would be surprised if he makes a decision anytime soon. He told me he wants to take visits into the spring, maybe get to some junior days, take some official visits in April and May. But I think when it's all said and done, Notre Dame will be tough to beat. Irish have been on him for a really long time, too. He was one of their first offers in that 2023 class. So strong relationship with Mike Elston. And he had a great visit to Notre Dame in October.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. He's a pretty good player. We'll get to a couple more questions here. Let me. I'll put them up on the board here real quick if you just bear with me. John asks, any updates on Lucas? I believe he means Anthony Lucas. Mike, you were just out there to see him. Would love to add him to the defensive class.
Update. I mean, when you talk to him, there's not much. He's not cutting it down past his top 7 schools that he gave in August. He's not giving a commitment date, even though he'll probably make some kind of announcement in December or January. My read on the situation is that I think it's going to be A&M or Bama for
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Lucas. I mean, Notre Dame had a ton of optimism at various points in this recruitment. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Back in June, when he took his official, I wrote up a just in case commitment story for him, just in case if he were going to pop, out of the
Yeah.
blue, like that. It was that serious. But now, I think it's probably going to be one of those SEC schools.
I could see why Michael's asked this question, and maybe he saw some of the pictures from our blueandgold.com of Drake on campus because he is a pretty big kid. Do you think he get too big for linebacker and play defensive end?
Drake Bowen. I see it. I can see where he's coming from because of the length. Like he's a pretty long kid, and I've also said he's listed at 6'2", 215 pounds, but he looks bigger. So I can see where you guys are coming from. But no, I think he's a Will or a Mike for me all the way. And another big. We talked about the 2022 linebackers, Greg. These athletes,
Mm-hmm.
Bowen. He's leading
Yeah.
Andrian to a deep playoff run in Indiana Class 2A, getting it done at linebacker and running back. So, oh man, he's a fantastic prospect.
All right, Michael wants an update on Jaylen Brown, the wide receiver from Gulliver Prep 2023.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're waiting for Jaylen Brown to announce a top schools group. It'll be something like 7 or 8. 2 schools mentioned frequently with him are Notre Dame and Michigan.
Mhm.
I mean, he's a Miami kid, but I think that there's a decent chance he ends up at the Midwest at one of those 2 schools. Um, I will see if he's visiting this weekend. I don't think he is. But look, Notre Dame got Cedric Irvin, his teammate in the 2023 class, a top 100 running back. Uh, yeah, Notre Dame would love to get Jaylen Brown. It's decent chance, still early. And those SEC schools and ACC schools down there will not make it easy.
D-Rock Irish, we love doing these, and we'll keep you
We
guys updated
fun.
on Notre Dame football recruiting. As Mike said, he loves covering it, loves Irish football recruiting, loves delivering the news. Hopefully, it's mostly good, but sometimes there's bad news, right? Like Sonny Styles, but there's a long way to go. But everyone, please hit like on this video again. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we've been saying all along, seek out our newsletter. Please sign up for that. And stay tuned to blueandgold.com. We've got coverage, of course, of the Notre Dame football team, but Mike Singer's the best in the business. He's always on top of recruiting as well. So, Mike, I know you got plans for later this evening. We also have some more show recording to do here coming up within the next 15 minutes or so. So we got to go. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk again next week.